Yeah, he's definitely got his work cut out from though, because I put Xixo in that camp of people like Kalento, like Purple, who just get Hearthstone. It just makes sense for them. There are a lot of players who had to really grind and work very hard to build up their skill to be able to compete at the top level. Whether he's been playing a lot of Hearthstone recently or whether you know, he's been taking a bit of a break, Xixo always just seems to get the game and play at a very, very high level indeed.
Yeah, he's one of the players where Hearthstone for them just seems like it's as easy as riding a bike. They come back to it and it's this skill and this muscle that maybe they haven't worked out in, you know, a little while, but it's so easy for them to get back into fighting shape. And Xixo is absolutely one of those players that you can never, ever count out regardless of recent results. And again, going up against Xixo in the first round could be rather intimidating, but we have yet to see exactly what these two players have brought to the table, what they decided was the best course of action for this event. And like you were saying, we only got this matchup just a few short minutes ago. Things happened. We were supposed to have, I believe, Fury Hunter versus Fayeli as our stream match, but we will be updating you on that one as that happens off stream, because that is a rematch of the semifinal from DreamHack Summer.
Yes. That's
a very exciting series that's going to be happening, and one of those players will start out 1-0. Very different than starting out 0-1.
Yeah, I mean, the first match does make a big difference in these DreamHack events, because if you lose the first match, you end up being matched against someone else that lost their first match. And even then, if you go undefeated until round 7 or 8 or something, your tiebreakers are still that little bit worse.
Yeah, and taking a look at Bozo's decks here that we've got lined up, it looks like some pretty standard last hero standing affair, we can say, with the even Paladin that's been a little bit under the radar for the longest while now, but it seems like in last hero standing in particular, the fact that it has some quite polarized matchups against the control decks gives it a good spot, I think, to be able to target some of the slower Druid decks in particular.
Yeah, it's weird. Even Paladin is one of those other decks I think that we're going to be seeing quite a lot of throughout this tournament. It's something that the players have been talking about a lot. That and the Dead Man's Hand Warrior, which thankfully we're not quite seeing just yet for the first series of the day. I mean, I guess we can just go through the decks that they're bringing then. Bozo has the Quest Rogue, the Token Druid, the Even Paladin, and the, is that Death Rattle Hunter? Yep, Death Rattle Hunter. Versus Xixo with Mali Druid, I think. Death Rattle Hunter. I'm literally looking through these as I'm saying them.
Shadowwalk Shaman and Even Lock.
Shadowwalk Shaman and Even Lock. Okay, cool.
Just for Xixo, feels like just middle of the road, standard decks. Pretty good against aggro, obviously, with the Shadowwalk Shaman and the Druid able to not be run over there. And against the control lineups, you have the Death Rattle Hunter, traditionally very strong against the slow control decks, and Shadowwalk Shaman. If anyone's bringing Odd Warrior, they will pretty much just lose to that deck.
It seems like a very strong across-the-board last hero standing lineup for Xixo. The Even Paladin and the Quest Rogue for Bozo stand out to me as being the unusual choices. And I say unusual with air quotes because they are quite commonplace in the meta right now, but maybe for last hero standing, Quest Rogue is a bit of a question mark. If you run into a very aggressive lineup, Quest Rogue certainly can suffer, and especially after the recent balance changes where Giggling Inventor went from 5 mana to 7, now the deck has even less defensive tactics that it can sort of fall back on in the face of an aggressive lineup. So that one might be a bit of a liability for Bozo. In other matches, not so much in this matchup, as Xixo hasn't brought anything overtly aggressive.
Now is probably as good a time as any to bring up that there was a slight change made to the way that the Crystal Core interacts yesterday. It was a last-minute patch, which means that the players did get a chance to update their deck lists today. The Quest Rogue players may have considered it because, in theory, their decks are now slightly weaker against Togwaggle Druids. But I don't think many of the players actually went ahead and changed.
Pretty much the only matchup that affects is exactly Quest Rogue versus Togwaggle Druid, but that is a matchup that we will be seeing a decent amount here, I think, at DreamHack Winter. There's a lot of people bringing Togwaggle Druid, as it is one of the more polarized versions of Druid, very good against the control decks.
To be totally clear, the difference is that buffed cards from the Crystal Core used to only get buffed when they get drawn. So the cards in the deck still remained at the original stats, which means when the decks get swapped, then the deck that the Togwaggle player would receive would not be buffed. Now it would be buffed. That is the change.
Which obviously makes a big difference, because then you can just win. If you swap as early as possible, you're in a pretty good spot to be able to pull the game back. Again, it's unlikely we'll see that matchup
too much. It's a really small,
but it could happen.
Change.
Good to have the change available to these players.
And I will say, it's a change that makes sense to me. If this had been the original way that the Crystal Core worked, I think it's very easy to justify. Had it remained the way that it had been, where it was more of an aura effect for the hand and board, I think you can justify that as well. But overall, I think we can all agree the change is fine. It's nothing that I necessarily saw coming, but it's
In
fine.
other news, Cora, there is now a purple sparkly effect. If you have a minion on the board,
Yes.
that means your heals now deal damage.
Oh,
so,
what, for the new Orkanai Phantasm?
so
Rastakhan's Rumble.
We're prepared for Rastakhan here. Of course, that expansion is coming out December 4th. This event ends December 3rd. So right after this, we will be getting into all things Rastakhan. And then Rastakhan's Rumble will be out, of course, for the meta at HCT Philly.
Which also means that you should be making the most of this event as the last event in the current Hearthstone meta.
Which I do think is why we're seeing maybe some decks like Dead Man's Hand Warriors,
Sure.
some decks that players normally wouldn't bring, but because this is an event where points obviously do not count for the upcoming playoff season, and where it is the last event of this current meta, maybe players want to do something a little bit different.
We've also had this meta for so long that it's sort of like the players next leveling it and then trying to next level it again and then again and then again. Which is why they're bringing this Dead Man's Hand Warrior and saying, yeah, this is our counter to Shadowwalk Shaman.
And I totally agree, talking out in the crowd to Orange, obviously a previous DreamHack champion and very strong player indeed, saying he's kind of sad that this meta is going. And I have to agree with him. While players have been having a little bit of a slowing down, I think, in the ladder meta, which I think is very valid because some matchups can be very polarized.
Yep.
In the tournament meta, last hero standing in particular, I think it's still incredibly interesting, the preparation that has to go into it. You always have to be afraid of how greedy can you go, I think is the big debate here. How anti-control can I go? Can I bring Quest Rogue and Death Rattle Hunter that has like 6 beasts in it or something? And when do I start losing to aggro? Is there one player when everyone goes too greedy that just has odd rogue, even shaman, odd paladin, whatever, and just stomps the whole tournament? It's a very delicate balance that you need to strike.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting to see how the meta has evolved over time, and we'll have to see the meta in a bubble over the course of this weekend, how these players have decided to go about approaching this very diverse meta that we have right now, and only for another couple of days. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bans that both Xixo and Bozo have decided on here and how that will affect the overall course of the matchup. We've got Bozo with his Warlock banned away, Xixo with the Rogue deck. I believe those should be
Swap them over.
I think that's the wrong way around.
There we go.
Swap the names,
It's actually,
the lineups are correct.
It's actually Bozo's Quest Rogue
Yeah.
that has been banned, and Xixo's Even Warlock, which makes sense, you know, Quest Rogue, as polarizing a deck as it is, obviously strong against Xixo's lineup.
Yeah, I think from Bozo, if he'd brought the Malagos Druid rather than the Token Druid, we might have seen a different ban other than the Even Warlock. But because Even Warlock obviously has cards like Defile, Hellfire, Dread Infernal, very strong against the Token Druid list from Bozo, and therefore Bozo is getting rid of the Even Warlock from Xixo.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, a little bit confused.
I was about to correct you there, then realized you're right.
The lineups-
There we go, it's changed over.
There we go. Okay. Perfect. Now everything in order. Bozo's Rogue has been banned away. That is the Quest Rogue. Xixo's Even Warlock is banned away. So that leaves the Hunter Paladin Druid for Bozo, and Xixo with the Hunter Shudderwalk Shaman and his Malagos Druid Token and Even Paladin for Bozo. The Hunters are both Death Rattle Hunters. So now, looking at these lineups,
Oh, you're gonna ask us
how
the
are you
question, aren't
seeing,
you?
I'm going to ask Derek, how are you seeing this matchup interaction occur? What would you lead here, I suppose?
Well, it's pretty similar decks, isn't it? It's Death Rattle Hunter for both sides, and then Druid for both sides, Token on one, Malagos on the other. The big difference being the Even Paladin up against the Shudderwalk Shaman. And I have to be honest, I'm a pretty big Even Paladin acolyte. I like the deck. I think it's got a really good spot in last hero standing. I agree that the overall power level is definitely not as high as Hunter or Druid, say, but it's found its spot. And against the likes of Hunter and Druid in particular, I think it can just aggro them down in the early game. If you can get down a Corpse Taker, a Blessing of Kings, anything like that, the game can be over before you know it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's a deck that is very explosive when it gets the right curve.
Yes.
However, the deck does not draw cards, so sometimes it can flounder a little bit. We'll have to see if it finds its good luck, I suppose, today, or whether or not Xixo will get the better of that Even Paladin. But now it's time to ask your opinion on this series. Who do you think is going to take the win here in Xixo versus Bozo? Make sure you are following in the channel and hashtag Xixo or hashtag Bozo to cast your vote. And that means now I have to ask you guys who you think is going to take this one. Falcone.
You don't have to.
I know we don't know much about Bozo, but do you think that he's got a shot here, or is it just going to be Xixo taking it?
It's difficult to judge but like, I don't know whether to judge on the lineups or on the players. I think I've got to be backing Xixo slightly here. I do like the even Paladin as well, Derek, but I also think Shadowwalk Shaman is just quite a consistent deck too.
Good.
So I'm going to say Xixo's going to win.
I'm going to contradict you here and give my vote to Bozo because, well, it's 3 reasons. 1, I get to disagree with you. Brilliant. My favorite pastime.
Yep.
Yeah.
My second favorite pastime is trolling Xixo, so I'm going to say he's not going to win this round. And third of all, again, I like the even Paladin. I think it's in a really good spot. The thing that really brings that to light to me was Hypno at DreamHack Oslo had, HCT Oslo had a really good run with the even Paladin. I believe he got to the semi-finals there.
Yeah, okay, so 2 reasons. I'm going to pick Xixo. 1, I don't like even Paladin. And 2, he had a very good hot take on the reimagined soundtrack for The Greatest Showman on Twitter the other day.
It's a good soundtrack.
I fully agreed with that because the new Panic at the Disco cover of the title song is phenomenal. So Xixo had a good thought there, and I think he's got a good thought with his lineup as well. The Shadowwalk Shaman is very strong, and even Paladin, in my experience from the past couple tournaments that I've cast where it's actually seen some play, it flounders more than it gets, Coin Corpse Taker and Blessing of Kings. So we'll see. We could be completely wrong, but what did you at home think would be the result here? Is it Bozo or Xixo who are going to start the day off right, getting that victory in the books and setting themselves on a good path for the next 4 rounds?
I'm
really
very surprised by this.
Got some Bozo fans in the house. I like it. I like being wrong. Means that I can be right next time, hopefully.
I don't think that we're wrong, Cora. I think that 54% of the viewers are wrong.
That is the grin of a man who thinks that we are wrong and he is correct. But we are going to find out now. DreamHack Winter 2018, round number 1 starts right now.
All right, Derek, Bozo versus Xixo. And I don't want to get into this a little bit. Like, why is it that you think everyone back home, well, not everyone, but the majority of the people back home vote for Bozo?
Why 54% of people?
It's a slight majority.
Yeah, well, it's just fun to type #Bozo in a Twitch chat, I think is part of the reason. It's just a fun name to write.
Xixo is a pretty fun name too.
Yeah.
It's just an old name.
Back in 2015, maybe.
Right. It's going to be the Token Druid versus the Death Rattle Hunter up first. Now, this is, in my opinion, the least bad of the Druid matchups against the Death Rattle Hunter, right? Because, like...
You mean you like the Token Druid against the Death Rattle Hunter?
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot more than I like Malagos Druid or Togwaggle Druid against Death Rattle Hunter anyway.
I can see that. I definitely agree Togwaggle Druid is the worst against Death Rattle Hunter. That is a pretty abysmal matchup. Malagos Druid and Token Druid, I think both have a really good shot because they can both get to their explosive win condition very quickly. Token Druid can definitely get there the fastest because you can just go Whispering Woods on turn 4 and then double Savage Roar and finish out the game in the next couple turns. Obviously, that's very hopeful and probably won't happen, especially when Xixo has got a pretty spicy-looking hand there on the Hunter with Mind Control Tech, Shore, and the Mossy Horror, which we've seen kind of exiting the meta a little bit recently. All very powerful cards in this matchup.
Pretty good here, isn't it? It's a pretty slow start for both players otherwise, though. It's looking a little bit like Bozo is going to get that Whispering Woods onto the board. And Xixo's not going to be able to do much about it immediately. Whether Bozo will have time to follow that up with his Savage Roar, with his Branching Paths or not, is yet to be seen.
Right, and that's the distinguishing factor in this matchup is, yes, you can get down the Whispering Woods early on. Can you do something with that to win the game? Because 6/1/1s is good, but it's not game-winningly good unless you get down Savage Roar or Branching Paths or Soul of the Forest, which Bozo has a good deal of to be able to get buffing those 1/1 straight away. But even then, I think unless he can get off to a very powerful start indeed, Xixo is still looking to be in a pretty good spot here. Because I think how this game likely pans out, as it quite often does when the Hunter has a good response, is Bozo will go for an early offensive with the Whispering Woods. It won't pan out because there will be the Mind Control Tech, Houndmaster Shore, Coin Mossy Horror, whatever Xixo wants to clean it up. Then it goes late game. Bozo can very much pull it back from that spot with Nourish into Ultimate Infestation as a very good backup plan.
Yep, gonna coin out that Houndmaster Shore immediately. As you were saying, it's just So it's just an incredibly strong start. No matter what Bozo puts on the board here, he can't deal with that Houndmaster Shore. And therefore, Xixo's going to be able to just rush in all of his minions any which way he pleases.
I wonder.
Bozo looking like he's just going to slam that Whispering Wood, but exactly as you said before, Mind Control tech plus the Shore is just... Oh, and Candle Shot drawn off the top as well. That's just everything Xixo could possibly want this turn.
And Xixo played for this. This didn't just fall into his lap. By going for Coin into Houndmaster Shore, it very much stopped the Mossy Horror possibility, but he realized if Whispering Woods comes down now, I completely destroy his board. Even without the Candle Shot off the top, there would only have been 2 Wisps left, which just don't do anything. You can very much survive against that. Which forces Bozo to go for some kind of a late game plan, ramping up into Ultimate Infestation, which thankfully for him, he does have access to.
Going to be a little bit of a struggle in the meantime, though. As you say, like Bozo, sure, he can Nourish. He can even Spellstone away the Mind Control tech.
Yeah.
But that's it. That Shore's not going anywhere. And I guess it's not as big a deal when Bozo's board is empty, but he's going to need to deal with it sometime.
So I wonder if his plan therefore becomes ramp with Nourish now, and then you can Hero Power. You don't use the Spellstone, and you save it for Malfurion Hero Power. Oh, sorry, Malfurion Spellstone on turn on 8 mana to deal with the Shore. Because you really do want to make sure you've dealt with that at some point in this game, because if that's still on the board by the time Katharina or Rexxar comes down, the game is pretty much just over.
Right.
Interesting though, Bozo instead looks like he's going for the double trade into the Mind Control tech, which obviously has its merits. You can see why he's going for that. It clears off 3 power on the board, whereas otherwise he would be taking a lot of damage. Whereas now I suppose his... Oh no, sorry, the Hero Power upgraded the Spellstone. Okay, sorry, my mistake. So now he can go for the 6 damage Spellstone onto Malfurion. So this works out perfectly. The perfect amount of Hero Powers beforehand to get the Spellstone upgraded twice.
Xixo really trying to work out between the Witchwood Grizzly and the Ziliax here, which one is going to be more important. I think against Token Druid, that don't usually empty their hand, Witchwood Grizzly it's kind of weak, unless you can follow it up with a cube and then activate the cube immediately.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the look of Ziliax a little bit more. Wow, he's going to go with the Grizzly.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a very difficult decision, but if you think in my what I draw from here is Taunt Druid against Token Druid, which is not a bad matchup because you have so many big taunts. They just can't get through all of them.
Right.
And while you obviously don't have it to the same degree in Death Rattle Hunter because you don't have Hadronox, you can still get a very decent amount of taunts with the Witchwood Grizzly into the queue. And I think his hand is doing enough already, like he's clearing off the board pretty much every time. So I like the Witchwood Grizzly for a strong follow-up, maybe going for the turn before Ultimate Infestation, and he fills up his hand.
Everything Bozo seems to do this game is falling short, though, as he's now played the Spiders into a potential Rexxar turn, and down comes the Rexxar, dealing with those Spiders. Mossy Horror can be saved until later for a Spreading Plague. Things are looking pretty good for Xixo right now.
That's true, but this is a pretty big committal of resources from Xixo. You never want to be using your Deathstalker Rexxar in this matchup unless you are killing a whole lot of stuff while you are doing it. And so for Bozo here, he's kind of baiting out the Deathstalker Rexxar, if you will, by using it, just kind of trading Death Knight here, battle cries. That's perfectly good for him, I think, to maybe, after the Ultimate Infestation, go for Spreading Plague into Soul of the Forest, or Whispering Woods now, just to try and get a nice big board going as soon as possible. Because he's just seen the Deathstalker Rexxar, so what punish could there be other than a Mossy Horror from Xixo to be able to deal with everything?
There it is, there's the Mossy Horror, so...
Which means for Bozo, he will have pretty much all of the effective board clears used up. Mossy and Rexxar is it, I think, in terms of wide board sweeps. Outside of that, you have to rely on Houndmaster Shore for Rush, which has also gone, which means the only plan now is defensive options. You have to go Grizzly into Cube Playdead.
To be fair, there are many different builder beasts that Xixo could come up with.
That's true.
I mean, how effective do you think that hero power is in this matchup?
Oh, it's crazy because it has the ability to give you effectively infinite value, whereas Token Druid is quite a low value deck. So all you really need it for is to survive. Get you that little bit extra. Maybe you can get another big defensive beast like a Witchwood Grizzly. If you can get yourself a bloat bat in the absolute best case scenario, you are absolutely over the moon. Still here for Xixo, just having to go for the most defensive option, which is to lock down the board. Try and pressure Bozo out of the game as quickly as possible, which obviously, however, has the pretty obvious downside of going into spreading plague into Soul of the Forest, which has to be what Bozo is looking to move towards as quickly as he can.
That's going to be his big comeback now, isn't it? Now that Mossy Horror's gone, now that Rexar's been played, in theory, there shouldn't be a way of clearing that board again. Hiding the Soul of the Forest behind a Spreading Plague and then buffing up all of the tokens for lethal later on. As Violet Teacher now comes down. Bozo going to try and make as many tokens as he can. Getting Wild Growth into excess mana into the second Wild Growth. Wow.
Yeah, I wonder now if he will go for his one copy of Soul of the Forest that he has in hand, thinking that is his big gambit.
I like this play. The Wild Growth into the excess mana, into the power of the wild, just creating the biggest, bulkiest board he can immediately.
Because what response is there to this? Houndmaster Shore isn't there, and if you kill off the, well, very astutely killing off the Charged Devilsaur as well, there's no cube playdead possibility to kill off yet more minions on that same turn.
That King Crush isn't looking like it's doing all that much at the moment. Xixo needs to clear up this board as much as he can immediately. Maybe a Builder Beast into some sort of Bloat Bat, which he can then play dead to deal with. Maybe that's his only way of clearing up this board at this point. With 2 copies of Branching Paths and Savage Roar in Bozo's hand, Bozo is setting up just to win the game soon.
And this is what I was talking about. Xixo doesn't worry about value, he cares about dying, because this is what Token Druid does so well. Its value is incredibly low, but it's the density of threats. It makes big boards in such a small amount of time that you have to have wide board AoE to be able to deal with it. And Xixo no longer has that. Maybe we should have seen him holding back on the Deathstalker Rexar for a turn longer against those spiders. Obviously, then you run into all kinds of other complications.
With the Innovate, is that lethal? We can now double Branching Paths and Savage Roar. No, it's not.
I believe it's 2 off.
It's 2. That's what I'm counting as well, because you can't hero power with that. So, wow, 28 damage. Available to Bozo, you just go for it, don't you?
So what do? If you get them down to 2, you're never dying on the following turn, even if they go cube. If they go cube, play dead on the King Crush, you are then dead, which is the punish, I suppose.
But at this point, Bozo's got to weigh up the odds, right? Like, does he play around exactly cube, play dead? I guess he'd also have to think about playing around any heal, any life steal from the Builder Beast. That would be a problem.
But and I suppose the question then is he far enough ahead to play around stuff like that?
My thoughts are plagued.
He's not sure. He honestly can't make his mind up. And so he's going for the play here of playing around cube as effectively as possible. And I think there were 2 main ways to play around cube. One of which was to clear up all the good minions, which is what he has opted for. The other method, which I think I agree with you was slightly better, was just to push all the damage to face and set up for Ultimate Infestation lethal. Because then the only way they survive is killing you, which maybe they could do, or more likely, they have to go for a big Katharina into Witchwood Grizzly play. Which Xixo does now have.
Yeah, I believe that the Witchwood Grizzly is the only beast left in Xixo's deck.
I think you're right, yeah.
Savannah Highmane seems to have met the axe in Death Rattle Hunter nowadays.
It comes and goes.
Yeah. Charged Devil Saw has claimed a more consistent spot, though. There you go. The nice little 3... Oh, sorry. I was going to say 312. 413 minion. Thank you for that, Keliseth, that just got played.
And so now the amount of damage that can be pushed through for Bozo is quite substantially less.
Now imagine if he had played both Branching Paths and Savage Ruin last turn. What may have happened here?
Well, it's not what may have happened here, it's what Bozo is thinking may have happened from Xixo's mystery cards that he can't see. He's thinking maybe he rolls healing on a Zombiest while also playing a big taunt. Maybe he gets Bloatbat plus lifesteal. But I think this is the mark of a slightly less experienced player, is they play around stuff too much. They are too afraid of what could possibly go wrong. Whereas I think what happens the vast majority of the time there, if you had pushed face, like you were saying, is you just win on the following turn because they can't heal and taunt all on the same turn.
That's the difficulty, is weighing up the odds, working out exactly what you're playing around and to what extent you should actually be playing around it. Xixo, on the other side of things, he spent this whole game wishing he had a cube in his hand. He'd love to cube this Witchwood Grizzly or have cubed the King Crush last turn. But he just hasn't had that tool available to him. But because Bozo has been playing around it, he's been able to capitalize regardless.
And the way that Bozo has been playing indicates very much so that he will want to kill off this Witchwood Grizzly above everything else, because he's been playing around Cube plus Death Rattle Activator very, very aggressively. But now, because he's already used the Soul of the Forest on that last turn, instead of pushing that damage through to face, it means he can't now go for a Spreading Plague plus Soul of the Forest as the big 1-2 punch. And he's left with what is a pretty measly board and a fairly measly hand as well.
Xixo, knowing that Spreading Plague hasn't been played yet, just doesn't need to go wide. He can just trade in the 2/2/2s, go face with Katharina. Maybe play a big beast if he gets one. That's about it. Like, he doesn't need to extend further onto the board.
As he has clearly been talking to Gallon here in the venue with King Muckler available even when not put naturally into the deck. And I agree, it's probably the way to go. Best stats. Healing doesn't matter all too much yet. But when you get the Vicious Scale Hide as well.
Every time.
Oh my God.
Because it means he doesn't even need to play it right now if he doesn't want to. He can just wait and then rush it into something later.
Yeah. But if, oh man, if that sticks and he draws a cube, he would then have 6-8 rush lifesteals able to come down.
I actually really like this play from Xixo, just trading in the weak stuff, putting up the Witchwood Grizzly because it's there as a taunt. This doesn't play into Spreading Plague at all. There really isn't much Bozo can do here. I believe both Whispering Woods have been played already.
Yes, they have both Whispering Woods. One Soul of the Forest, I believe, has been played.
And a Violet Teacher, even. So Bozo's resources are incredibly limited now.
Very little generation available, and the Spreading Plague doesn't do all that much anymore. So maybe it's going to have to be
Ultimate Infestation on the Witchwood Grizzly?
UI, both Spellstones have been played as well, I believe. So UI innovate into Spellstone to kill off the Grizzly to play around a cube isn't a possibility.
It just brings me back to that turn where he could have dealt for 28 damage. He had a UI in his hand, he had a swipe in his hand. We didn't know this, but he was about to draw his second swipe.
Yeah.
Like, Bozo would have most likely, I don't want to say would have, because then Xixo would have built a beast. Maybe he'd have got this ridiculous King Mukla lifesteal, and maybe he still would have won. But that was definitely Bozo's best shot this game.
But I think the key aspect of the play we're discussing of going all in on aggression there is even if your board is cleared up, you still then have, if Xixo was able to dominate the board, you still have Spreading Plague into Soul of the Forest. You still have follow-up afterwards. And I think that's how you generally have to play Token Druid, is you have to do... It's like it's a combo deck. You don't kill your opponent in one OTK, but your cards have to work together well, or they are just very understated cards. They don't do enough.
What do you want here, Derek? Do you want the Spreading Plague Killer in the Mastiff plus the Bear, or do you just want this big Bear, Shark, Tiger, Beast thing, 9/8 stealth?
I can respect this. It doesn't quite set up lethal, but it's very aggressive, and it means that Bozo has to play on the defensive, I think. And this is what we're seeing. He's drawn through his whole deck, but there is no ultimate win condition like in Malagos or Togwaggle. You have to do stuff along the way very powerfully to get there.
There's something he could do with Cenarius, maybe. I'm really not seeing it.
Yeah, especially with the old Muckler ready to come down, mill a card from Bozo, as well as just completely destroying the board and putting Xixo in a pretty good situation.
The last card from Bozo.
Which is another Plague, I think. I'll give you £1 British pound sterling.
I think it is the second spreading Plague, actually. I think you're right.
And yeah, just carrying on here for Xixo with the game plan he's been going for throughout the entire game, clearing off when he can, not going too wide into spreading Plague.
Do I have to give you £1 British pound now?
No, it cancels out.
Ah.
That's how economy works.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Bozo, you have a handful of things. You just can't really do much with them. Even having had to use one of the Savage Rolls earlier means that it's not possible for him to have one turn where he plays 2 Savage Rolls and 1 Branching Pass. He used the Innovate earlier as well, so he can't do the other way around. Like, there's really nothing he can do here. He has to Spreading Plague and hope, but honestly, I'm not sure what he's hoping for.
But this is just what it's like playing against a pro player like Xixo. It's like going up against a brick wall. There's no room for mistakes or alternate lines that are not the quote-unquote correct way to go about it.
Right.
Because they will just play correctly. They will clear up your board every turn, and you will be left with no recourse to take the game back. And again, this, you know, Token Druid is a very difficult deck to play, and it's a deck that I find leaves itself very open to styles of play, playing it differently, like whether you go all in, you're a very risky player, like we saw Bozo throwing out the Whispering Woods right at the start, turn 4, and then again, a couple turns later, just throwing out another Whispering Woods. Obviously, they were dealt with through Houndmaster Shaw, the Mossy Horror as well. It did not work out for him. And I think a lot of players would have said he should have waited a little bit more and gone for the combo of Whispering Wood, Soul of the Forest, or Plague, Soul of the Forest a little bit sooner.
It can't be fun though, can it? Like, you know, you've come to a DreamHack, you're not that well known. I'm saying that simply because us as casters didn't know who Bozo was. I hope that I'm not doing him an injustice there. But your first opponent, you match up against Xixo. Maybe one of the more intimidating members of the Hearthstone scene.
Xixo is incredibly intimidating. I have been lifted up on his shoulders before.
You have been lifted up on his shoulders.
I know. Big old, tall, fat Derek has been lifted up on Xixo's shoulders. He is surprisingly strong.
And very tall himself. Which one of you is taller?
Xixo. He's the only Hearthstone player who's taller than me. It's very disappointing.
I'm sure glad I don't have to cast with him.
Me too.
As he takes the first game. There you go. That is Xixo's Death Rattle Hunter claiming its win. That leaves him with Shadowwalk Shaman and Malagos. Sorry, it's not Conquest.
Yes.
It's Last Hero Standing. Let's reverse that. He's going to continue to play his Death Rattle Hunter. And that leaves his opponent with even Paladin and Death Rattle Hunter.
And that is a big win. For Xixo there, the Token Druid for Bozo. I believe he started with what was his Sweeper deck, which is a common strategy in Last Hero Standing, where he was thinking, if I can win the first match with Token Druid against Malagos Druid, really not that bad of a matchup. You can very often get an unwinnable a board state that cannot be dealt with right at the start of the game. And against Shadowwalk Shaman, which pretty much unanimously runs Keleseth now instead of Wild Pyromancers, the Token Druid is also very nice against the Shadowwalk Shaman. So for Bozo, losing his Sweeper deck, as I'm sure he will have seen it, is a pretty big blow right at the start of the series.
So what's the counter pick then, Derek? What do you think? Does he go with the Paladin? Does he go with the Mirror Match, the Hunter?
I think you can probably take the Paladin. It's not anywhere near, in my opinion, as good a matchup as Odd Paladin is against Death Rattle Hunter, for which they just go too wide early on. They just swamp the board early on, and then you get level upped and you pretty much just tend to lose. Cards like Flanking Strike become significantly more powerful in this matchup. As we can see here, he is going for the even Paladin because it doesn't go as wide on the board. You rely on mid-range strategies, sticking a Corpse Taker, sticking a Armani Berserker, if you will. I don't know why I said if you will, that's what the card is called. But it relies on small minions, you making them, buffing them up instead of a super wide board of small minions, which Hunter can deal with better.
Turned our curse into our strength.
Especially when they get a fairly nice little hand like this once again. Xixo is just an egg away from a very nice starting hand indeed.
He is, however, still an egg away from a very nice starting hand.
Yeah.
And that could cause him a problem. Like, he's got the flanking strike, but he's not got Hellmaster Shore. He's not got anything really to play at all.
Yeah, and I wonder in this matchup who sees themselves as being in the lead as the game progresses. Because obviously if Xixo can find a big cube play dead turn, or if he can draw Katharina, I think we can agree he'll probably be in the lead, which means stalling is fine. He's happy with just stalling for the moment. But if he doesn't get any of those cards and Bozo goes for something like Coin Corpse Taker into Blessing of Kings, Xixo is going to be starting to feel pretty rough indeed.
I feel a little bit weak at the knees there, Dan, with the second Blessing of Kings picked up there.
Yeah, it's tough to play it though from Bozo because he knows Coin Corpse Taker is very weak to exactly flanking strike because the candle shot is already equipped. So does he spend a turn playing the Noble Sacrifice first to protect his Corpse Taker? He doesn't want to take the risk. This is again from Bozo. A risky play that could have huge benefits.
Worst case scenario is it gets flanking striked and then you just Blessing of Kings the Hydrologist.
Yes.
You've got a 6/6 on
That's fine.
But yeah, it's been played now, but Corpse Taker, this deck does run Crystal Smith Kangol for the lifesteal. It's got Wind Fury Harpy for the, well, Wind Fury, and it's got Tyrion for everything else. So everything you could possibly want for Corpse Taker is comfortably in this deck. And I mean, honestly, Bozo doesn't really have any other options here. Hero Power Pyromancer is like the only other play available to him, really.
Well, like, no, I was looking at Pyromancer's Secret, because then you can trade in the Wolf, and your Pyromancer is technically protected from the Candle Shot because of the Noble Sacrifice.
Okay.
Is worth considering.
Options.
Yeah, it still dies to like Ziliax that your opponent could play on turn 5. But then the Blessing of Kings is also weak to exactly Ziliax on the following turn. 3 damage kills it off. It's weak to a second Candle Shot. Both of these plays are weak to pretty much everything that Xixo is looking to do on turn 5.
He's going to have to go with it, though. It's just...
Yeah.
Taking all of that aside, it's just the strongest play available to him right now.
Yes.
So it's the play he's going to go for. Unfortunately, though, Flanking Strike in the hand, Hunter's Mark in the hand, whatever Xixo wants to do to get rid of this.
And
oh, he's even got the Spider Bomb play dead.
Yeah, a multitude of options, whatever he wants to go for. And I like the slow play there from Bozo. I think that was worth considering. But when you look at both Pyromancer into Secret or the Blessing of Kings, they're both weak to the same thing. So what gives you the bigger benefit? And the benefit of Blessing of Kings is 6 damage to face, which could be relevant. Maybe you can go for an aggressive plan later on.
True Silver Champion. Very healthy draw for Bozo there, given how lackluster his hand was looking. Gonna just dismantle the Spider Bomb. Next turn, yes, he can play Gen Greymane. Great. It's something.
He needs to start getting the power draws, because when even Paladin falls, well, when even Paladin falls massively behind, it obviously has a quality Consecrate or a quality Pyromancer. When it's in this kind of state where it's definitely not worth going for a big board sweeping clear, but you're still definitely not winning the board, that's when it starts to feel like a bit of a funky deck. Like it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And you're just not pushing enough damage. And here with the Hunter chipping away turn after turn after turn, eventually Xixo's going to draw Katharina or Rexar, and he's going to win. Oof. Especially when you have cards like Wind Fury Harpy in your deck.
I mean, it costs 6 mana, it's turn 6. If not for Xixo's board, he'd probably just slam it. Wind Fury Harpy into the Blessing of Kings sitting in the hand. Seems good. But no, it just dies. Oh, so easily right now. Xixo has, although his hand, again, it was so weak at the start of this game, he's managed to put these little tools together, and he's got control of the board. Bozo can't do anything.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call Xixo's hand so weak. It's done what it looked like it was going to do at the start of the game. It's cleared the board because he had candle shot, flanking strike. He drew another flanking strike, another candle shot. He hasn't dominated the board. He's just kept everything clear.
Sure. But he's keeping it clear to the point where Bozo can't actually develop anything.
Yes.
And the fact that he has an extra flanking strike in his hand, he has the Hunter's Mark still, it leaves him in a very good position. Bozo's looking like he might be considering just clearing everything this turn. With the Consecration and then hitting it with the weapon. Okay. Sure. This develops a better board, still deals with most of Xixo's things. That flanking strike still annihilates him though.
Yeah. Or the Hunter's Mark, whatever Xixo wants to go for here, and tracking as well.
Finally.
He can start finding some of his good cards, and he just keeps pushing damage through to face. Without Crystal Smith Kangor, Bozo has basically no healing in the deck, and he's just going to die.
I think he just takes
Take another tracking
here. Yeah.
I agree.
He needs, like you said, he needs the power plays. Just anything big. But mostly that.
There we go.
Mostly that on the right, yeah. That's... Yeah.
You do need to be worried about value up against an even Paladin. They can go for pretty long into the late game, I find, especially if they're running cards like Tyrion Fordring or the Lich King, which Bozo has opted to bring.
And when Valenier gets drawn, obviously,
good point.
Everything gets that little bit stronger for the Paladin, especially if they can do something ridiculous like Valenier into a Saronite Chain Gang. Though Bozo missing all of those cards, missing Tyrion, missing the Lich King, missing anything big himself. Quite a slow game on both sides.
It has indeed, and so now that Bozo has decisively lost the early game, he needs to wonder, what is my win condition? How do I wrestle this game back?
Harpy, let's go. Harpy, he can put down the Noble Sacrifice to try and protect it, and then he can maybe Spike Witch Steal it next turn. And then it's a 6-attack win for minion. It's the best he's got right now.
It's an incredibly hopeful play. It's very optimistic, but it could just work out. We can see there is actually an answer to that in attacking in with the weapon first. Obviously, this is assuming it's Noble Sacrifice, which Xixo doesn't have any indication that it is. And then you could trade in and then go Deathstalker Rexar.
So if he attacks him with the weapon first and it ends up being Redemption, then that is a problem.
So I guess you just go Hunter's Mark?
Hunter's Mark, then attack him with the weapon, yeah.
Or you could just go Hunter's Mark Rexar. Because then if it's Redemption, it pops back up and you hit it.
And he can still play the Hunter's Mark now. Still solves the problem. He can play Rexar, he doesn't even need to hit him with the weapon anymore.
Yeah. I guess if it wasn't Get Down, then this was better. It's difficult to not be results-oriented with Secrets, because obviously we can see this wasn't the best way to do it.
It's difficult for us, it's difficult for the players to work out, like, what is the best sequence of events in all circumstances, as Bozo gets a good draw here. Tyrion gonna slam that straight down.
Yeah.
And actually, for the first time, Xixo can't deal with it.
He is behind on board, it would seem, finally. No Spider Bombs left, as I believe the second one was discarded off of a tracking as well.
Never mind.
He does, however, have that button that he can just press, and when you press that button, you tend to win games of Hearthstone.
I mean, even if this whiffs, he can go Houndmaster Shore, play the Terrascale Stalker, and just double trade. So he can actually deal with Tyrion regardless.
So that was Bloat Bat plus Poisonous and Rush.
Cool.
That has now just been gained. He could go for Stoneskin Basilisk with the Bloat Bat, which leaves him with a 7-mana beast that he could then go 7-mana Zombeast plus Terrascale Stalker to get a poisonous 2 damage to everything effect. Which I think he's looked at now. I think he was going to snap Valbrood Skitterer because that's generally the better option.
Yep.
But getting a Divine Shield Poisonous Death Rattle deal 2 damage to everything that stays alive on the turn it's played is pretty disgusting, and I agree that's the way to go.
Does he play it this turn, though?
What? I don't don't think so, right? You attack in with the weapon, and then next turn you go Zombiest into Terrascale.
It's such a clean-cut way of clearing the board, It just feels awkward to just float 7 mana now after just building a beast.
And not only does it feel awkward, it's an incredibly suspicious play. Like, Bozo is going to be wondering, what is this Bozo thinking?
Is that what Bozo thinks? It's just think the word Bozo for everyone.
Yeah. That was, well, that was kind of ambiguous. It could either be, what is this Bozo thinking as to Xixo, or he refers to himself in the third person in his thoughts.
Options. That's very complicated.
It is a very complicated joke that doesn't make much sense, I agree.
I feel like I've been next leveled a few times.
You have.
This curse has become our greatest strength.
And here it is, the big develop onto the board from Bozo, thinking, even if he, if he does have some big way to pull back onto the board, I'm losing anyway. He has fallen into Xixo's trap, and now it is being sprung. And look at Bozo there. He knows he's just been got. He got Xixo.
And the crazy thing is, it's still there. It's still got its Divine Shield.
Oh, man.
It's still dealing with at least 2 more minions.
Yeah. So again,
actually, it's not.
Well, yeah, he has to spend his a good amount of his mana this turn just cleaning it up, still taking a whole bunch of damage. Xixo has incredibly powerful follow-up now with the the Charged Devil Saw, and still that hero power, which will keep on plugging away.
Oh, great, a cube as well. Nothing to activate it with this turn, but still.
I think what most likely happens this turn is the hero power for Xixo and then follow up with Charged Devil Saw, because if that survives, you can then go cube, hope to draw a Playdead or a Terrascale activator to get it rolling. And it is worth pointing out for Bozo that he could have played around what happened to an extent by going for Spike Ridge Steed instead of the Gen Greymane.
This is a devastating combo of beasts. Just 10 mana, 2 cave Hydras, both with Rush. Yeah, this game is well and truly over by the looks of things, as Xixo is going to be knocking out Bozo's second deck with only his Death Rattle Hunter, as there is the Valanier picked up too late.
It's not over yet. He's still got Spike Ridge Steed, which is one hell of a card. He's still got Sunkeeper Tarim, arguably the best card in the game.
Still feels quite over from where I'm
it's not looking great, I will agree with you. But if you kill off the Charged Devil Saw, that means cube Playdead possibilities are over, and then hero power Spike Ridge Steed. They don't have the steady shot hero power anymore, so you're not dying through the Taunt.
Yep, you're right. It's reasonable, and putting up the Spike Ridge Steed is obviously important this turn.
It's not great. And the Cave Hydra kind of cleave effect will not come into play right now, obviously, with only 1 minion available and no more Spider Bombs, no more Hunter's Marks available for Xixo, having used them very aggressively towards the start of the game, means that this Spike Ridge Steed is a little bit annoying to get through.
I'm just staring at this hand, trying to find a lethal somewhere, but I don't think there is one just yet. Like, Mossy Horror is just a little bit too expensive to be played alongside anything else, because that could have dealt with the Stegodon itself. Obviously, Xixo can press the button and potentially just get a Life Drinker or something, win the game immediately.
Like, he can just go double Cave Hydra here, which clears off the board, because I believe they both have 4 attack. Oh, no, sorry, it'd be 1 damage off clearing the board. It's still just a very powerful play onto the board, into which your opponent can develop nothing, because your whole board just gets swept by that wide board clearing effect. And yeah, that's what Xixo's going for here. I like it. This is not the time where you have to go for value, because you are so clearly ahead in the value race. You have to push your advantage, which is the fact that your opponent has pretty much just died.
However, now is going to be the chance, I guess, for Sunkeeper Tarim to make that little bit of a swing that it can. He's got the hero power, he's got the use, slam him onto the board, makes him 3/3s.
I think Xixo's face just about says it. He knows that this game is over.
He looks bored.
The vast majority of the time. Xixo always looks bored.
Bozo just looks A little bit lost.
Yeah.
Lost is that the word?
Well, like we saw the emotion
Dejected.
from him earlier on when he lost to the bloat bat Terrascale Stalker play. That's what just locked this game out for him.
Still doesn't seem to be a lethal setup for how Master Shore somehow.
We're both just looking at it there.
Xixo, just press the button, get a life drinker. Come on.
Wait, no. If you, oh no, there is
There
lethal,
is?
right? If you go Devil Saw Egg, Houndmaster. Oh no, wait, no. Sorry, you can't play the cube as well.
No.
Yeah, like, I guess you just push the button. Or you can go cube into Houndmaster Shore. Okay, yeah. This makes sense. Clear up the board. And still, a Spike Ridge Steed or a Lich King has to be found right now for there to be any chance at all for Bozo.
No, it's not good enough.
That is not good enough.
I was going to say, the one thing Cora said to us about this deck earlier on is that it doesn't draw cards.
It does not draw cards, I agree. And it really has not done the job here at all for Bozo. It was a valiant effort, to be sure. But falling 0-2 now to Xixo, whose Death Rattle Hunter is just doing amazing work against these decks that are trying to aggro you down early on. The Token Druid, the most aggressive of the Druids, being dealt with very handily. And now with the Even Paladin going down as well. Like I said, the fact that it's not Odd Paladin means that it's weak to Spider Bomb, to play to the Flanking Strike. All these single target removal spells become significantly more powerful against the Even Paladin. And because of that, and that incredibly explosive and ingenious turn from Xixo to go for the Bloat Bat plus the Stone Skin, he's left with only his own Death Rattle Hunter up against 3 of Xixo's decks. He has to reverse sweep.
And it's not going to be an easy task here.
It is not.
Given that the first deck he has to play with is the one that he deemed the worst of the 2 matchups between the Even Paladin and the Death Rattle Hunter. He has to beat Xixo in the mirror. So I'm just now going to stare at these 2 deck lists and try and notice if there's anything different. Yes, Bozo actually has a high main rather than a charged Devil Saw. Is that it?
Pretty close outside of that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just very standard deck list. Nothing too fancy going on here.
Death Rattle Hunter has pretty much been refined to the point of completion. Oh, there's a lot of bombs.
It's an interesting hand. It's explosive, to be sure, but that's not that bad of a starting hand. Like, obviously, if they have an egg, the Spider Bomb can get a little bit messy because you start blowing up their eggs and then they get 5/5s that just attack straight away and you take a lot of damage. But in a lot of other outcomes where they try and go for a Witchwood Grizzly start to just blow the game out, or even if they just get a 3/3 off a Flanking Strike, these Spider Bombs can keep the board very firmly in your favor at the start of the game.
Oh, Xixo throwing away everything other than the tracking, though.
Yeah,
What do you think
eggs.
Eggs? I was okay.
Yeah, eggs and Kelliseth.
Oh, this hand seems good.
Yeah.
No eggs, but I think you're happy with that.
Oh man, if he gets an egg with his hand, it's going to be so disgustingly powerful.
How's about a King Crush?
Less good.
No.
Yeah.
Devil Saw? No?
Less good. In the objective scale of everything in the universe, egg is a lot higher than Crush.
Oh, God, he wants that egg so badly. And next turn would still be fine. Egg, coin plated, and Terrascale the following turn is great. Oh, Bozo got there. He got the egg.
Xixo looking across the board, pining after his opponent's egg, wishing that it was his. Because that is the key to the early game in this matchup. If you can get yourself an egg early on, those Devil Saws will just run away with the game, especially because Xixo does not have Spider Bombs of his own in response. He threw one away off the mulligan, which I agree with. You want to look for your own early game a little bit more aggressively. But now Bozo is looking like he's going to start running away with the early game.
So what does Xixo do to mitigate that? Because as far as I can tell, he has a few options available to him. The one I'm looking at is actually just drop the 3-mana 4/4.
Yeah.
Play the Mind Control tech, the biggest minion onto the board you possibly can.
It's like it's damage management.
Yeah.
How bad do you think your opponent's next turn is going to be. If you think they have Terrascale Playdead in hand, obviously you save the mind control tech, because you're never beating that without a steal of a 5/5. Xixo is saying it's unlikely you have that, and I think this is the mark of a strong tournament player as opposed to a somewhat less well-known player like we saw from Bozo.
Okay.
Like in the first game when he was saying, oh, I don't want to push for lethal, maybe he has a cube into double Playdead for lethal. That could happen. Usually that doesn't happen. Xixo's realizing it's very unlikely he has the ability to make 4 minions on the board. So let's just play the 4th one. Let's just get it out there, because this usually is the better play.
And like you said, I think damage management is a great way of putting it. Like, clearly Bozo is about to do something with that egg. May as well put as much power onto the board as you possibly can now and deal with that. The good thing Xixo does have going on for him is that he does have the cube and the Playdead later on. So if he can get one even medium-sized minion to stick, then he's going to be in a great position. That candle shot, not a bad draw, actually, with the 4/4 and the candle shot dealing with the Devil Saw, and then Keleseth just straight trading into the Spider Bomb.
Yeah, that's really not that bad. And oh man, he's just one draw away from having a really, really powerful hand. If he was to get Egg, Spider, even a Grizzly, if he can get a Witchwood Grizzly that sticks for a turn and then goes Cube Playdead, that's probably just game right there.
I am surprised by that play. Wow. Okay, so he was obviously hoping that the Microtrotec survives, so he gets 3/3s from this cube.
Yes.
That's very different from what I was looking at. The 4/6 plus the candle shot trade, value trades into the 5/5, I guess?
It's pretty strong positives and negatives of either play. Your one obviously is a tidier play. It deals with the board more effectively, so you're taking less face damage. You need to be less worried about the aggressive output from your opponent.
Yeah.
But Xixo's play is more proactive. I think he's realizing that this hand at the moment needs a Death Rattle card on the board, and Cube is that card. If you can get these Terrascales to summon 2 2/2s every time, that's fine.
Then Bozo's Deathstalker Exile is going to have a great day.
Well, yeah, but...
No, I know what you mean. I agree. Like, he has to do something with these Terrascale Stalkers.
Yeah. Obviously, if he draws a Spider or an Egg, that becomes easy, but he can't go all in on that plan. I think this is usually the more effective way to go about it.
This cube is basically a Savannah High main.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Except it summons Keleseth and it's made of slime.
Similar enough to me.
It's like Savannah Slimane. And there we go. This is the plan he was moving towards. Just get a big old board and pray that he doesn't have Deathstalker Rexar to be able to deal with everything here. And man, oh man.
This is going to be one of the stronger Rexars that I've ever seen. Oof.
Yeah, Xixo knows what's coming.
This is like a Hearthstone player's dream. Look at all the Keleseths dying.
Yeah, that was therapeutic, I think, for everyone watching. And there it is. The Spider Bomb is a very, very important pickup for Xixo, because otherwise his hand was doing basically nothing.
Oh, perfect.
Gets a very nice roll there as well. So he is now ahead on board.
Amazing.
Somehow, after those ridiculous plays from Bozo, but card advantage is in Bozo's favor, even ignoring the Builder Beast hero power, which is going to be incredibly relevant in pulling Bozo ahead.
This does show the downside of cubing the egg, though. It's that Bozo's run out of Death Rattle activators now. He just drew a flanking strike, but he'd prefer to play that on an opponent's card. In fact, he can flanking strike the Spider Bomb.
Yeah.
Spider Bomb can crack the egg open, so that's something.
I think what he was thinking there is, do I play another egg before flanking strike to increase the odds of an egg dying rather than the wolf dying, or do I press the hero power? And I agree you should press the hero power. A 2 out of 3 for a good outcome is good enough, especially because getting those Builder Beasts rolling, I think, is pretty important here when the rest of your hand doesn't do all too much. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him in this instance.
And he has a 5-mana, what's that, a 3/3? A 5-mana 3/3 Silence Poisonous Taunt. One of the more peculiar Builder Beasts. And Xixo's sort of just throwing everything he's got at Bozo now, hoping that Bozo can't generate a big board quickly enough. But with that Houndmaster Shore Draw, Bozo's looking very healthy.
Oh, the fact that you can rush in the Spider Bomb.
Yeah.
So nuts. Even being able to fit in the Hunter's Mark, I suppose, if you're not feeling especially lucky. Just Hunter's Mark the Shore, and then you kill off 2 minions. Yeah, this works out absolutely gorgeously. It comes down to, from Bozo's side, pretty much just praying that Katharina isn't available for Xixo. Because if it is, then he's in a pretty rough spot. However, it's
unplayable
pretty much the worst draw that Xixo could have got. Wow.
It looks like, it's starting to look like, Xixo's sweep is coming to an end.
Yeah, he needed something much more powerful than this after he lost the early game as a taste of his own poisonous medicine. Comes in here for Xixo with the exploding blow bat picked up for Bozo.
Could this be the beginning of a reverse sweep?
Yes, is the answer to that.
It could be. Will it be, is the question.
To that, I do not know.
Oh, then again, with King Crush and the weapon, able to nicely clean up this board. Again, these eggs are doing nothing.
I guess it's not actually over now.
Well, it's not now, the Rexar.
Yeah, Rexar, like, we know what Zombeasts can do. If Bozo rolls very poor Zombeasts, which so far he kind of has been doing.
Blowback plus Play Dead, though.
That is not a poisonous one. That is a 3/3 taunt, I think. I think it got an Iron Fur Grizzly on there.
Okay.
So it only does 2 damage to everything, I think.
6 mana 2/4. Wow, these minions are... Power level in Hearthstone has gone down, hasn't it? It's got Poisonous and Rush. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, no question here as to what the play is. Xixo, now, I guess now is a true test of Xixo's skill in Hearthstone. Can he out-build a beast? Bozo.
It's not easy to do, but if anyone can do it, I think it's Xixo, because building Zombeasts is a very skill-testing aspect of Hearthstone. I absolutely love the Build-A-Beast hero power. Just because you always have to know what the options you're going for are, what are the optimal outcomes.
Already, something has maybe even gone wrong for Xixo here, as he could have played a cheap Build-A-Beast rather than using the first hero power this turn. Obviously, you use the first hero power because you don't expect to get beasts this cheap. But hey, he could have had a Stone Tusk Boar play this turn.
And even if he could have had that, I don't think he necessarily would have done that, because he wanted to get the most expensive one he could, because his hand doesn't do anything. He needs to fill out his mana with those big old beasties.
And now Bozo just going to be as aggressive as he possibly can. And hey, 7/7 Stealth Wind Fury is pretty aggressive. But there's Katharina. Wait, hang on.
Is it just one Witchwood
I
Crucible
think
left?
so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, Charge Devil Saw?
No, it was trackinged away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If I remember rightly, there's one Witchwood Grizzly in the deck, and that's it. Which is fine. It's not great against the 7/7 Wind Fury. What's this? I mean, this board trade with the 7/7 Wind Fury.
Yeah, and that is the best outcome. That is what you're praying happens here. Nothing else untoward occurs. Obviously, that Zombeast, I believe, does not have... sorry, the Bloat Bat does not have Poisonous attached, so it will not be able to effectively deal with all of these beasts from Xixo. But it still is just very firmly Bozo in the lead. Like, he doesn't even have to trade in with the Wind Fury effect. He can attack in once with the Wind Fury, and then Devil Saw plus Flanking Strike the other one.
Yeah, or some
and connect the base with
something or
in
some
there.
hero power thing. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
That 7/7 is about to get even bigger. Yeah, sure. Take the Poisonous as well.
The Skitter
That's just a free kill.
Insane.
Maybe you put a Divine Shield or some health or some attack on this thing?
When I said Xixo might be able to out-Zombeast his opponent, this is not how it occurs.
He actually targeted the Devil Saw there, okay.
Oh, I guess because if he gets plus attack, then that's even better than getting plus attack on the Wind Fury.
Is it?
Well, yeah, because on the Devil Saw, if you get plus attack or Poisonous, then you get to connect 14 base rather than 7. I think that's the right way to go about it. As Xixo wondering, what on earth could help me here? Tundra Rhino, maybe I can charge something in. We can see it's pretty much lights out, and Bozo will be taking at least one game, putting something on the board.
Like, if he drew exactly played at this turn and managed to get the Poisonous Bloatbat, which he could play even then the Devil Soul survives, I think there was literally nothing that Xixo could do, as Bozo does take his first game of the series. Wow, okay. We have a game going on here, Darren.
We do indeed, as the 2 remaining matchups for Bozo that he has to win once again with his Death Rattle Hunter in both of them. It's Shudderwock Shaman and Mali Goss Druid.
Not the worst matchups.
They're not bad, but I've had a really interesting relationship with both of these exact matchups, actually, where I originally thought Death Rattle Hunter was by far the favorite in both of them. But having played it a little bit, and especially talking to pro players, I'm getting some very mixed opinions about it. Like with Shudderwock Shaman in particular, I know Hunter Ace and Muzzy are both players who have been feeling pretty good about Shudderwock Shaman in tournament play recently, saying it's not that bad of a matchup. In the Shudderwock Shaman, if they go for a big cube or high main play, you've always got Hex, Earthshock, Volcano, so many removal options. And then once you get to your ultimate win condition, they do not stand a chance.
Shudderwock Shaman is such a strange deck. Just its history within Hearthstone, its brief history within Hearthstone has been like, it was played day 1 a lot, then everyone thought it was bad, then it became good, and now it's just sort of solidified itself as like a good tier 2 deck.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it's piloted by the best of the best as well, like the players who are really acolytes of it, like Language Hacker in particular, who I know has been playing a lot of Shudderwock Shaman, I think it is very easily a tier 1 deck because it just has good matchups against everything if you're, oh, not everything, but a lot of the decks if you're playing it correctly.
So Xixo actually has Hemet in it, which definitely isn't something I'd consider popular nowadays. It had its time.
Yeah, well, like the thing people say about Hemet in Shudderwock Shaman is it's only good in the mirror. That's like the criticism that people have of it, which is obviously not true. That's an oversimplification of its spot in the meta. That's where it shines the most, and it is incredibly important in the mirror. What it leaves you weak to, however, is the fact that mid-range decks can all of a sudden aggro you down after you play a Hemet.
Right.
For example, like Death Rattle Hunter is a perfect example. If you play the Hemet and you lose Healing Rains, you lose Earth Shocks, all of a sudden, they're just going to start killing you. They're going to go Q play dead on whatever minion they can, and your responses become very limited indeed. Yeah,
it's the fact that Hemet's remove cards, like as you said, like the Healing Rain, like the Far Sights, like these Lightning Storms, the little cheaper cards, like Glacial Shards even, that can make a big impact. Earth Shocks on cubes and things.
But for the moment, this is, as expected, a pretty uneventful early game for both sides. Neither deck does all too much between turns 1 and 4. Now is when things start to get a little bit more interesting. As
to Hex or not to Hex?
Yeah, Xixo has 2 very, very different diverging lines here.
Wow.
He could have considered going for Chain Gang on this turn, Chain Gang on the next turn even, and then Lightning Storm, because he will hope that the Howlmaster Shaw will have been damaged and weakened enough to the point where it will die to a Lightning Storm. However, he's saying, I don't want that. I don't want to send out my Chain Gangs as lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah.
I want to actually be able to lock down the board with these, which it's looking like he will actually very easily be able to do.
With both Chain Gangs and also Grumble in his hand, he must be tempted to just hold on to them and try and get some sort of...
Also a good point. Also a good point.
Especially with Hagatha as well. Like there's a potential for him to generate a lot of value very quickly. With the combination of cards in his hand. It just occurred to me that last turn, Derek, that, oh yeah, Xixo is the fast player, isn't he?
He is the quick boy.
Yeah, because that snap pick on the Hex there was very fast play. I hadn't noticed so far this series.
It's been fairly complicated games. I've agreed with most of what he's been going for. But yeah, he's up there in the speed department, along with Casey, I think, who may have taken the crown in recent tournaments as the fastest player.
Good. I wouldn't mind having some more of those.
I wonder.
Got somewhere you'd rather be, Dan? You're not enjoying my stellar company?
No. Your company is great, Derek, but after a 3-hour Shudderwock Shaman Dead Man's Hand warrior, I'm not so sure I'll be feeling the same way.
That is a fair point.
But if Casey and Xixo are piloting them, maybe not.
It'd be like a 5-minute game. You'd reach turn 45 after 15 minutes. As still, because of Xixo's decision to go for the Hex there to deal with the Houndmaster, sure. This is just going to be going tit for tat for the next few turns. It means that Bozo's plays become significantly weaker for the moment. It does mean that because that Hex was used, Bozo's plays will become more powerful later on. There's no response to a Cube or a High Main or a Katharina, but for the moment at least, Xixo has made himself so that he is not dying to early aggro, which is a very valid thing to be afraid of.
This is a board clear for Bozo, though, with the not even having to use the candle shot with just the minion and the Rexar. Slightly annoying for Xixo, probably not the end of the world, because Bozo isn't developing a board of his own anyway. Now Xixo can actually just go Sound Knight, Chain Gang Zola if he wants to, and then sets up for the Grumble next turn.
Yeah, I don't know. I always like looking at Cube quite creatively in this matchup, because one of the ways I find that Hunter loses is when you save Cube too greedily for a big old turn where you go for, I don't know, Cube on a Witchwood Grizzly or whatever, Devil Saw, and then you go double Play Dead or double Death Rattle Activator, and you lose to Mind Control tech. That's one of the big swings in this matchup, I find, is that the Mind Control tech is so powerful for Shudderwock Shaman. So they're going for, you know, a Cube on the Spider Bomb. I don't think it was correct. I think this was probably the better way to go.
It was worth considering.
But definitely worth considering, because that Cube is then just very annoying for Xixo to deal with unless he's got an Earth Shock.
Especially given that one of the hexes has already been
Exactly,
played.
exactly. That's why I like aggressive use of Carnivorous Cube from here on in.
But then there's nothing stopping Bozo from just making one big minion from this Builder Beast. Wow, like a 10-mana Corpse Taker Tiger thing, which then also discounts the Cube and then doing some really disgusting things.
That's true.
Can't
that
play it
sticks
for another
around.
2 turns.
That would be pretty disgusting. That's like a reckless experimenter all of a sudden.
Well, yeah.
But
without the minion dying.
But nothing like that. It's like a Corpse Widow, actually, one might say.
Yeah, and also like a Stranglethorn Tiger.
Agreed. As this looks to be a pretty easy Grumble turn for Xixo.
It's awkward though, because now Zola's back in his hand. As the Shudderwock Shaman, you don't really want to play more Zolas than you have to, because every time your Zola goes off before a Grumble, that's a 9-mana Shudderwock that's being put back in your hand.
That's fair, but given that he hasn't played Hagatha yet, hand size is not that much of an issue.
Okay.
And because he could also go for Zola on a Grumble and then grumble back his Zola and just start going, or grumble back his Grumble.
Okay, so
that's when things start to get pretty absurd.
So Shudderwock's never, ever, ever, ever going to whiff if you do that. But you,
no,
again,
never, ever, ever. But you might die to King Crush.
And true, and there's also the issue that you could end up with just a handful of 9-mana Shudderwocks.
Yes. So the play here could be Zola, one of these minions. I'm not actually sure if it's correct to go for the Chain Gang or the Grumble.
He needs to not die.
Then trade in the Grumble into the King Crush, and then just Hex the Katharina.
Yeah.
Like, it deals with the board. You get down your Zola. You could even go Zola the Chain Gang, play another Chain Gang, Hex, and then trade in the Grumble.
Yeah, he's not really thinking about Shudderwock at all at the moment. He's thinking about surviving. That sequence had to happen.
Yeah,
looks like he's not going to play the Zola, just going to put all of these Sound Knights on the board.
So this is the other use of Zola that you can consider, of which is the more standard route, I should note, of saving it. Exactly, yeah. You go for the Shudderwock. If it fails, you play the 1-mana Zola. I wouldn't have hated going for something like, actually, like Zolaing back another Grumble. Maybe that's just like fancy play syndrome. Like, I'm just getting too fancy there.
It's quite fancy.
Exactly. I should just be sticking with the tried and true tested route, which Xixo is going for, of just saving it back.
The nice thing about Xixo's hand here, though, is that if he feels himself safe next turn, he's still got high health total, he's got 3 taunts on the board. As long as Bozo doesn't do something completely absurd, Xixo could go Hemet, Farsight, and just start to really dig for that Shudderwock.
Farsight becomes a lot better after Hemet, I agree.
Because what's it drawing? Like, there's not even many options in Xixo's deck. It's drawing Shudderwock or Volcano. Or Shudderwock or Volcano.
Wow.
That's it.
Oh, and the other Farsight as well is a pretty big old draw for Xixo.
Yeah, if he does this now, it leaves him with 3 cards in his deck, I believe. 4. Oh, what have I missed? Oh, another Life Drinker.
Right.
So he got the Volcano. So next turn, he will get 1 natural draw, and then he'll get a Farsight, which means there'll be 1 card left in his deck. So he should
So 2 out of 3 times he can play Shuttle Rock next turn. Which would already potentially have the ability to just win the game because he has played a Life Drink already. And there it is.
He's not played a shard though, I believe.
Well, the shards are gone because of Grumble.
Well, yeah, so that's
right. So you're saying he might be afraid of dying.
That is a 9/11 stealth sitting there.
Yeah, but he can trade in the Grumble first. Sorry, the Hemet first.
Like if that 9/11 gets Wind Fury, if
it's like I agree that Xixo should be cautious here because he is so likely to win the game now. But I think giving your opponent more turns is more likely to lead to a loss than just going for it now. Because, I mean, look how many Saronite Chain Gangs he has to bounce back to his hand.
He only got two 1-mana Shadow Walks though, which is fine.
I think that's probably fine.
now he's only got 1.
Okay.
And this is the issue I was talking about earlier with this is what can happen, even if your hand looks like you're not having any issues with it. Next turn, so Xixo will start by playing the 1-mana one. If that one goes wrong, he can play a 9-mana one, and then that's it for the turn.
I think he's still winning there, right? I
think
agree.
so too.
I agree. This couldn't have gone much worse. Like the worst outcome is he would have to have gone Zola on that turn,
right?
Which was very, very unlikely, considering there were 4 or 5 chain gangs that had been played. I think he's still very, very likely to be winning this game. But there are slim chances that if the battle cries go in exactly the wrong order.
Well, he's still in a good position, but the issue is that 9/11 is still there. Like, Xixo kind of has to win this turn. So the last card in his, the last cards in his deck, Volcanoes.
It's just Volcano.
Yeah. Like if there was a way for him to clear up this 9/11 even, he's going to start with a Lightning Storm. It also empties his hand a little bit more, means that the Shadow Walk is more likely to put a 1-mana card in. Never mind. Went off first. That means Zola will be putting a 9-mana Shadow Walk in the hand.
But if he plays a 9-mana Shadow Walk now, he
loses.
Well, no, he goes back up to 27. He's still alive, right? Like, he's not dying.
He's alive, but it's getting risky here. Like, there are a lot of builder beasts that could just end him.
So now, he can go for another Shadow Walk on this turn, which heals him up more and almost guarantees him a 1-mana Shadow Walk to hand, but not necessarily. Oh no, it doesn't even almost guarantee. It's a 50-50.
If Zola goes off first.
It's just a 50-50. Oh my god.
And this is one of the issues with Zolas in this deck. He's going to totem. Trying to get a Taunt Totem, I guess. If he plays a Lightning Storm now, he can't play Shadow Walk next turn. What a desperate last moment play from Xixo, and it's gone horribly wrong. Nothing actually gets killed off here. Xixo.
What was that play?
Clearly not happy with his own decision making there.
He just killed off their eggs and turned them into 5/5s.
What? Xixo just gonna concede from that immediately. Oh boy.
That was just a panic from Xixo. Yeah. He just didn't know what to do there. Look at Bozo's face. He can't believe it. I have never seen a game like that.
Well, the score is 2-2. We are going into the last game.
And to Xixo's credit, I'm not trying to make fun of him here. That was an incredibly difficult series of turns there. I very much doubt either of us could have found the perfect line there. That
he
is
got
one
very unlucky.
Yeah, he did get very unlucky. That is one for the Shadow Walk gods to figure out how he could have won that, because I absolutely believe that game was winnable. If it had been played correctly there. Even just not going for the double Lightning Storm to deliver lethal to Bozo there, I think increased his chance. Like, just taking a 50-50 with Shadow Walk, while to get a 1-mana Shadow Walk back to his hand, while it may not have been the best play, I think it was a fine play. It keeps him alive. More than double Lightning Storm does.
Well, let's all take a breath. Xixo included. Let's all take a breath. Now, you were saying earlier that you think this matchup is fine for the Malygos.
Yeah. like, the counteracting, the ability to counteract the Druid combo is kind of low. Like, you have Ooze to be able to deal with Twig, but that's not the be-all and end-all anymore for Druid. They still have Dream Petal Florist. They still have Faceless, I believe, if you're Xixo as well, running one Faceless Manipulator. So the end-game combo can be quite problematic for the Hunter to deal with. But also just the early game, going Coin Nourish into double Tyrant here is a very strong play for Xixo, or saving them up for a big Spreading Plague turn as well could be very powerful indeed.
One of the issues I've always found when I've played any of the more control-y druids in this match, or any druid at all, it's that Mossy Horror. It's the fact that you're never really safe when you go for that big defensive Spreading Plague play, because it can just be mossied away. However, Bozo hasn't drawn it yet. But Xixo will be wanting to play around it a little bit as wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is aggressive, right? If he's going for ramp, he wants to get that board locked down early. And another point to Xixo's credit here is the decision to kill off the egg on the previous turn, which we were talking about, the Tyrants and how he'd play those out at the time, has been so important for him here. If he was facing down 2 5/5s as well as an egg on the last turn, obviously with Bozo being able to go play dead Terror Scale on the last turn, this would be a significantly worse position for him. That, you know, that's a fairly results-oriented way of looking at it, because usually Bozo wouldn't have double Death Rattle activated in hand to be able to deal with the egg. But it's a hedge play from Xixo. He's saying, as long as I don't get blown out by 5/5s at the start of the game, I'm in a pretty good spot, so let's play around that. Let's just deal with that right off the bat, and I should be in a good spot.
Pick it up nice and early.
Yeah, that's
so he's going to have to take
important.
some damage as he starts swinging that into the Witchwood Grizzly. But with Branching Paths, with Ferocious Howl, he's looking fine-ish. Fine-ish. Yeah. Katharina's a little bit scary.
This does start to make me wonder about his use of Tyrant so early, because it looked pretty good going into that board, but is pretty good enough.
Typically, you'd expect Tyrants to be hidden behind a Spreading Plague, or with an Ultimate Infestation for a big old swing turn later on, even just to empty the hand. But like that, it removed a little bit of damage, but that's it.
Because it was weak to Ziliax on that turn in combination with the Candle Shot. It's obviously weak to Grizzly there. Kind of weak to Spider Bombs plus Death Rattle activators as well. There's a lot that the Tyrants aren't so good against. And now this is a brilliant board for a Spreading Plague, but he's got that 4/4, lowering the amount of Scarabs he's going to be getting.
This would be an amazing Spreading Plague with 2 Arcane Tyrants played the same turn, wouldn't it? And then Branching Paths after. Whew. Weak to Mossy Horror, though. And again, that's the issue I was talking about before. It is scary. I don't think Xixo has much of a choice here, but to just not play around Mossy Horror.
Especially as his choice to attack in with the hero power on that turn into the Devil's Sword. Like, it's weak to pretty much, I think, exactly Witchwood Grizzly only. And sorry, it was weak to Grizzly and the Spider Bomb, but both of those are not ridiculous outcomes to occur on the following turn. And Xixo has just been taking a lot of damage this game. He cannot survive against this for much longer at all.
And yet he has to get that weapon closer to being activated. He has to deal with the Witchwood Grizzly too.
And so now Mossy Horror off the top would be enough to just win the game for Bozo right now and complete the reverse sweep. And that looked like a Deathstalker Rexar animation to me. Oh, no, it's the Mossy! What?
Bozo takes the series with a reverse sweep. Xixo is just out of the client entirely. This...
Oh my god.
A huge congratulations to Bozo, though, for taking that series back. He looked completely deflated by the end of Game 2. But now, big smile on his face. He's just taken down the Hearthstone giant that is Xixo. I'm talking about his skills, not his height, but that too, I guess.
Yeah, and I think for Bozo there, his play, I really warmed to it as the series progressed. I think it started to mature very well. The early games, I disagreed with some of his lines with the Token Druid in particular.
Yes.
But that Death Rattle Hunter, that feels like just a really strong deck for him.
Yeah, he clearly showed that he knows how to play it. Well, that is the first series of round 1 of the Swiss done. But we are not finished with round 1 of the Swiss. We will have a match to follow up with, and we'll be showing you that right after this.